Welcome to the New to Wrestling podcast, where I, your host, Xavier Cruz, a lifelong wrestling fan, will take a lifelong friend through the action, the joys, and the drama of the world of professional wrestling. My co-host, Kelsey Silva, has been bitten by the wrestling bug, and I want to invite you to join us as I take her through the moments that made me a fan. So if you're new to wrestling and would like to get brought up to speed, or a fan who would like to relive some classic matches, promos, and segments through fresh eyes, join us as we embark on a journey through the Attitude Era and beyond. Welcome to the New to Wrestling podcast. Hello, and welcome to another edition of the New to Wrestling podcast. This week, we watched the July 1st, 1996 episode of Monday Night Raw. My name is Xavier Cruz, and I am joined, as always, by the lovely Kelsey Silva. The card for this week saw Shawn Michaels versus Marty Jannetty, Mankind versus Duke the Dumpster Droese, Goldust with Marlena versus Wildman Mark Miro with Sable. All right, so let's get into it. This week was vastly different than last week, I thought. So let's just go from the jump. So Shawn Michaels versus Marty Jannetty. What did we think? I'll give you a little backstory about them in a second, but I just kind of wanted to get your first impression of the first match.
Well, Shawn Michaels is the wrestler for me. It was all about the drama, the entrance, the camcorder, the earrings, and the gum that he continued to chew through the whole match. All about gum smacking. It's a spiritual experience. I loved it. And I was saying when we were watching it, I take back what I said about how I feel like in like today's wrestling, there's more drama with the like you think you got him pinned, but then he breaks out because I was like, no one is winning. Like forever. They're gonna be locked in this cycle forever. Like they just keep going and going and going. It was so good, a lot more acrobatics. There were flips, flops, tumbles. I felt like I was at Cirque du Soleil, girl. It was lovely.
Heard. Okay,
Big fan.
so Shawn Michaels is kind of the wrestler that is going to like grandfather a lot of that in. A lot
Amazing.
of right. So right now, currently, he's like the world champion. But a lot of wrestlers today will cite Shawn Michaels as like one of their favorite wrestlers. He's kind of like one of the, I don't want to be like he's like the first, but he was kind of one of the earlier ones to kind of bring that kind of style, that like high flying style about. And if you notice, like he came out with Jose Lothario. So Shawn Michaels was very much like he grew up. He's from San Antonio, Texas. So he is kind of on the borderline, and was exposed to a lot of like Mexican wrestling, which is where a lot of that high flying stuff like comes from.
That's awesome.
So he's kind of one of the earlier ones that brings it to and throughout like the United States. So what makes this match kind of interesting, or at least in my opinion, is you don't know this kind of backstory because this happened prior to Shawn Michaels like going solo, but Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels used to be tag team partners. So yes, they like alluded to it. They alluded to it during the episode, but they didn't really like go into it. But so you know how Marty Jannetty had that like tag team partner who's just kind of like jumping up and down,
the
like
jumping meme,
losing
yes.
his mind. Yeah. So that used to be like it used to be Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty with the matching outfits. And they were known specifically for having that like high flying like style. So that's kind of why this match was like kind of like a more exciting one for like fans, because we got to see because they had a whole feud after they broke up. They used to be known as like the Rockers. And then essentially when Shawn Michaels was like ready to go solo, he like basically like kicked Marty Jannetty like through a window. Like like through like it was like on a set, so it wasn't like he was like flying out of a building
God,
or anything. But like there was big T as far as that.
Wow. I love that.
So Shawn Michaels is very much like the showboater. He calls him, or he will call himself like the showstopper. Like he is very good at telling a story in the ring, which you'll kind of see more of as we kind of get further along. And he's kind of like the person that developed that style that we're gonna come to know.
Word.
because we're exiting the era of like what we alluded to this last week of like huge wrestlers who are kind of like lumbering and kind of slow,
Mm-hmm.
where we're now switching into kind of a more agile kind of like style.
Mobile,
um
agile, hostile.
and when we were watching, you commented on like the number of like just females absolutely like screaming,
Scream me.
like
It was
yes.
me.
So around this time, Shawn Michaels posed for Playgirl. um
I
so
got to look that up later.
yeah, I don't think there's anything like explicit, but it is,
No.
it's Playgirl. So
It's for the
like
girls. We don't want to see that
his
anyway,
his popularity like with that fan base like exploded during this time because
Mm,
he was just kind of a sex symbol, period. um
I love that.
no, it was a great time. So also we had Jim Cornette on the outside, the guy with the racket.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he's like a manager
Yes,
for like,
tennis racket man.
yes, he was kind of he's a manager for like another group that wrestled last week. The one he was with like Vader and Owen Hart and the British Bulldog, like those
Okay.
three. He's their manager
Okay.
technically. And
Okay.
he's kind of at this point in time, Shawn Michaels has an ongoing feud with the British Bulldog. So he was kind of out there like in support of Marty Jannetty, but not actually like on his team. Like we'll just put it that way.
Heard.
But yeah,
Heard.
that's kind of generally like the gist and like backstory of that first match. So the second match,
Word.
I'm very interested to hear kind of your opinions on because it was your first exposure to Mankind. So hit me with
Which
your thoughts.
I honestly, the name and this deep psychosis fits.
Right.
So like, but he chilled me to the bone. I can't explain it. Anytime he made a noise, I was like so freaked out. And the man, what was it? The mandible,
The mandible claw.
the claw. The mandible claw was really scary. I was like, what is happening? What's happening? But I don't know. He found his vibe and he committed to it. And the fact that it's just mankind, like that is just he
Yeah,
found his niche. So scary.
so I like it's weird, like the kind of like the premise of his character is like he's like an escaped like patient of like an insane asylum, I
Which
guess.
no one will wrangle him and take him back. Got it.
Right. He's like absolutely batshit crazy. So like you'll notice like throughout the match, he's like pulling out his own hair, like, and
Yeah,
he's
that was
actually pulling out his own hair.
like
Like
that is his human hair that he's legitimately
just
yanking out of.
ripping from the root. Like he has large swatches of like bald spots from like how often he like does it. He's nuts as far as like the wrestler like Mick Foley, and just the character Mankind is insane. He is in like a feud with like the Undertaker. And he when they debuted him, like the Undertaker was like is pretty much like unstoppable. He is like, as far as like professional wrestling, or at least the like WWF at this time, like he is the bar. Like you don't beat the Undertaker lightly.
Mm,
But when he like debuted, they put him immediately in a feud with the Undertaker, and he has victories like over the Undertaker. So right, they're building him up to be like this huge deal. And
wow.
his move, like the mandible claw, is like so ridiculous. Because it's like the first time a lot of audiences like see that, and it's the same reaction like you had. It's so jarring to
It's
just
so
see.
visceral. It's
Yeah,
like you
right,
like feel it.
right,
So
because you just
invasive.
this guy like is this grown man is fully just like shoving his fingers like in, yeah, like it's so bad. But that's the reaction they want you to have, because they want you to like feel a certain kind of way about him, like this man is dangerous, you know.
It lands for sure.
It's stuck, absolutely. But I do want to comment on, during that match we had Jake the Snake Roberts
Oh my god.
on commentary, joining Vince and Jerry the King Lawler. And that was kind of your first exposure to Jerry the King Lawler as so you commented on how he's just very like relentless and like brutal and like absolutely savage. But he's what's called like the color commentator. That's what they call his like role. So like basically his position on the announce team is just to stir the pot. Like he is always going to side with the bad guy. He's always going to just talk as much shit as humanly possible. So he you saw him kind of just like absolutely dig into Jake the Snake Roberts. Because at this point, whether it's like real, imagined, like Jake the Snake's Roberts storyline is that he was like a raging alcoholic and like had recently found God and got sober. So Jerry the King Lawler is not buying it whatsoever, has zero chill about it, and almost spends the entirety of the match just shit talking Jake the Snake Roberts and not paying attention to the match. But it's kind of like a really good example of how good he is at just like just saying the first witty thing that comes to his mind. Like he's so relentless and so good at what he does that you end up just like you're like, will you stop? Like, could you like chill for 2 seconds? But yeah, that was brutal.
It was legitimately impressive at one point because I was like, it's been a long time and he has not stopped, and it's all off the cuff. Like I'm sure like he had some ideas like going in, but like it was just bing 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 bing, and I was like, this is literally like a TED talk on how to throw shade relentlessly for minutes and minutes and minutes and minutes nonstop. Like it was an expose on button pushing. It was honestly like a clinic. It was really really something. And I wrote down the one thing he said because it was so, I was like, I don't want to just remember this like for today. I need to remember this for the rest of my life.
Right.
Your breath is bleaching my hair.
It was so good. I love that we're like cackling now, but like in the moment of watching the episode, like we had to like take a moment because it was so out of nowhere that
out
like
of pocket.
it took us like off guard.
Violated.
And like 100%. And like the thing is like he's so good at what he does. It's just like how do you even like if you're not able to like come back at this man with something, like he will just steamroll over you as like so it really he like really keeps a lot of people on his toes, and you're gonna see kind of the true talent that is Jerry the King Lawler on the microphone.
I kind of can't wait.
It gets even more unhinged. Just yeah, you don't even know like what we're in store for, but it gets even crazier. He's just on another level of just absolute insanity and has zero filter, which is pretty impressive to do for like network television. So I'll leave that as a little tidbit for you. But more to come on that.
Thank God.
All right. And so the final match that we had was Goldust with Marlena versus the Wild Man Mark Miro with Sable. I as far as like it being the main event, I was like, I feel like this could have been like the middle match or like the opener. Just because it's just like it just feels like it's like it's clearly building to other things for them to have separate matches with other people. But I'm pretty sure you felt the same way. I spent more time like interested in Marlena and Sable than 100%. I did like the match. And it has nothing like it was a decent match. Like they're both great wrestlers. It wasn't that. It was just like I was more interested in what the characters were doing on the outside than what 100%. Was actually happening in the ring.
Yeah. I wanted them to kiss real bad.
100%, because like you have Marlena just like absolutely just like giving Sable like the death glare while like absolutely just chomping on a cigar. Like
she was tooting that thing.
That's what I'm saying. And like you want to see them fight more than I wanted to see the two in the ring. You know what I mean? Because it's great, like because Marlena's like very you said it, she's calm, cool, collected, and just like you never really know what she's thinking, but you know it's never good.
Yes, which is my favorite type of person.
Yeah, so you know it's like she's up to some, like she's scheming something, you just never know what it is,
She's a scammer.
essentially. And then this is kind of your introduction to Sable, who is gonna have plenty of screen time coming up in the like next couple years, which you will see. Because she comes out in that like Catwoman
Mm,
leather outfit, which is
backless.
just a taste of what's to come as far as Sable and her outfits and lack thereof going
Oh, thank
forward.
God.
Let's do favorite match, least favorite match. Who stood out to you the most on this episode?
Okay. I agree with you. I feel like it should have been like because my favorite match was the first match, and I kind of feel like that should have been the last match. Like I
I'm
would have
with you.
just swapped those two because I feel like that would have been a Fuego opener
Right.
match with Gold Dust and Mr. Thighs.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
I would have
Send your thighs, if you
I would have
will.
loved that. So, but that first match was my favorite match. Just the entrances, I just felt like the moves, I was a lot more like like on the edge of my seat. I just felt like I was
Mm,
more engaged. But I don't know if I have I only want to say that the second match was my least favorite only because it Mankind made me so uncomfortable, which I know is his the point.
right.
And like so it's not like in a negative way I'm saying that. It's just like I was like, "Oh my God, this is like
A
some
lot.
other shit. Like this is some other stuff." Like it's just
No, I
like
agree. I agree.
and then honestly, character that stood out to me or person that stood out to me the most is Marlena. Like and I know she didn't wrestle, but
No, she
it's
doesn't need to
she does
because
it's all she doesn't say a word, it's all in her eyes, it's just it's like she has her vibe, it just emanates from her so good, her little outfit, her bag, the cigar, like the way that she like because Sable, which also I want to say Sable is one of the best names I've ever heard
Mhm.
for a character,
No,
like it just
fully.
gives all the sex appeal in just
Hmm.
one word. And like she was like banging around like cheering on her mans, like doing the whole thing, and like Marlena didn't do any of that mess. She just like went over, she did a little like cigarette smoke to distract, match was over. Like it
Right,
was just
right.
like everything about she literally embodied like work smarter not harder. Like she was like, I'm just gonna get over there, toot the zoot, I'm gonna whatever,
Right.
match done. And like I was trying, like you said, I was trying to watch the match because I was like, this is what I'm supposed to be like focusing on right now. And they were doing some crazy stuff, like especially when is it Wildman? That's his name.
Mark Miro, but you can call him Wildman. That's his like
Okay,
moniker.
Mark Miro, Wildman. He because to me, the Gold Dust,
Yes.
yes, is so big. I don't know
He's
why I
six
think he's
six.
okay. Yeah, he's fucking
He's
huge.
a big man.
So
Yeah.
he's humongous. So at one point he just like he Wildman was down and somehow he just like stood up and Goldust was like on his shoulders and I was like, how did he do it? Like that was
100%.
crazy to me, but I was also like so distracted by Sable
Right.
and Marlene and I was like, like it was just
Where do I look? Where do I
where
look?
do I look? Where do I look? But I think that she was my favorite just because it was like less is more and it was really giving. I was really into it.
And like that's something that's gonna come up a lot, I think, is like while yes, like what happens in the ring is like, pretty important. And like there are a lot of wrestling fans who are very much about like just what happens in the ring.
Mm,
But when you think about it, like the way I watch wrestling, the way I watch like theater is like these are characters. So like it
yes.
doesn't matter necessarily if they're doing like just because somebody's not the technical star of the scene doesn't mean that they can't steal the scene. You know what I mean? And like
Yes.
she is such a like enticing character because she's
Mm,
so mysterious that
mm-hmm,
like she stole the scene and you didn't even like it at the end of the day, like who won and lost, does it really matter?
mm-mm.
No. But I'm now interested in Marlena and what she's gonna do to Sable. You know what I mean?
Period.
And like it's something devious and like she got you. Because like it's a television show at the end of the day. So like what makes a good television show is good characters put in good situations.
Mm,
So like when you have like intriguing characters and you've now created an intriguing situation because now you want to know what's next, that's good television.
mm-hmm.
So like while at the end of the day, like the wrestling, what happens in the ring is very important. And especially if you're talking about like a live setting where you're watching um yeah, where you're just watching what happens in the ring. You don't, you're not getting the commentary that you're gonna get on like television. You're not getting,
Right.
you know what I mean? Where
Yeah.
that's why like being both technically sound is very important because you need to be able to put on a good wrestling match. But when you kind of take a step back and look at the theater of it all, the little like nuances you get on television from like camera cuts and angles and like little smirks at the camera, like she was doing a lot with her face that no one in the the live audience is ever going to see. uh you know what I
Yeah,
mean, where there's
totally.
always like a technical aspect to that sort of stuff where like yes, what happens in the ring, all great, and like wrestling historians I'm sure will probably knock me for like what saying it kind of can take a back seat to the character and the acting of what's going on,
Mm,
so that's going to be
totally.
something to kind of like look out for because you're going to start seeing they kind of get more into the stories of like why they're fighting, and like that's something that comes up a lot in wrestling is like the three questions like you need to answer are who are these people, why are they fighting, and why do I care. So
Okay.
you know what I mean, so and they really start to kind of like take off on getting really good at answering those questions.
Mm.
It's an exciting time to start, so I am loving the process of watching you watch these things. You know what I mean? Just because
Yay.
like things like today you were just like, is that a pile driver? And I was like, yes, yes. I
Good
was like,
job.
yes, it is a pile driver. So I'm enjoying kind of the process, which is great.
Blessed, thank God.
All right. Any final thoughts that you might
It was cool to see the other, because I asked at one point we were watching who the other, because there were other tables of announcers, and I was like, I know that not all those people are the people we're hearing, and realizing or asking you, I was like, are they commentating in other languages? And like you were saying that obviously they commentate in Spanish, and then the third language is
it
TBD, I
varies.
guess, on where
Yeah,
they
it
are.
really depends. Yeah.
Wow,
Because
that's
like
so cool.
and it depends on where they like broadcast to. And
Right.
especially like today, you never see them really on like television, but they have like tons of announcers, like
Wow.
just because it gets broadcast like all over the world, especially when we're talking about like WWE, because they, not only do they tour all over like America, but they, they hit South America, they go to Canada, they go to Europe, like they have like I think like, I don't even know how many times a year they go to like Saudi Arabia, like they, yeah, so
Whoa.
like it's such a humongous like worldwide thing that like they have to have commentators for like all of these things. um
I love that.
yeah, it gets interesting, and especially because you'll see as like we go along. I told you like typically like, or at least especially in the Attitude Era, like if someone's going through a table, it's going to be the Spanish announce table, like, or at least first it's going to be
Mm,
the Spanish announce table.
damn.
So you'll get to kind of like know the Spanish commentators and whatnot a little bit.
Oh, I
But
love
all
that.
right, this week was good. I
Good,
enjoyed.
very juicy, a lot to take in.
Oh, we didn't even talk about Sunny getting slopped.
Oh my God, how could we forget? That
I
was
honestly, I was just
seriously,
so focused on the matches, I forgot.
no,
Um,
and that was a moment.
so for those of you who don't know, Sunny was kind of having a moment with Phineas Godwin, who's like these kind of like farmer-esque
He gives
hillbilly
Lenny from Of
characters.
Mice and Men a little.
Very like yeah. So she's like basically like mocking him and like making him say that like he loves her and like all of these things, just for her like current tag team to come out and like attack him, setting it up for like a future match between the two, I'm sure. But she ends up getting just like slopped, which is just getting like a bunch of like what is slop? Does
I
anybody know? Like
like yeah,
I
like
know
what?
I know the term like slopping pigs, but like do I know what that actually entails? Absolutely not.
I guess it's what you feed pigs, but I don't know what it is comprised of.
No,
They
but
don't
she got
teach
it.
you that in a standard public school education.
No, definitely not, especially not in the Northeast. But
Yep.
yeah, she got that dumped all over her head.
Mm,
So it was, it's just classic bit comedy, you know what I mean? It's just
so
like
good.
but it's always great because Sunny's such a terrible person, as a character. Like she's just
Mm,
so horrible. Like she will just drop whatever is not hot at that moment, you know what I mean?
hmm
So it's nice to see her get her comeuppance every now and every now and again.
Very satisfying. And I noticed too, after you said that the one announcer who's the ball buster, who always you're like he always sides with the bad guys. He the one that kept saying like, nope, cut the tape, like
Yeah,
don't show it. We don't want to
don't
see it.
show her.
And I
Yeah,
was like, why not? Like, why do you want to see it? Now that makes sense because
yeah.
he's always like, no. Oh
No,
my
he's always going to
God.
be on the side of the bad guys. Like you'll see it more and more. Like
Okay.
he is like the bad commentator, essentially.
Well, he does it so well.
I know, honestly.
Oh my God. I was like, who's saying cut the tape right now? I gotta see that. And they really tease you with the slop.
Oh, they dragged it out. I was
They
like,
really
are you
did.
gonna do this or not?
She better get off the pot.
That's what I'm saying. I was like, she's gonna get it or she's not gonna get it. Like, and I'm hoping she gets it.
She better get it. You made me wait
um,
this long.
no, honestly. All right. Well, thank you for joining me again this week.
I'm gonna do it again next week too.
We're gonna
Yeah.
do it again next week. And every week after that for the foreseeable future. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us on the New to Wrestling podcast. Join us next week when we watch the July 8th edition of Monday Night Raw. That is going to feature Owen Hart versus the Ultimate Warrior, which is another one I'm kind of excited for you to see because that
I'm
man
ready.
is just like if think of steroids if they were a person.
Okay.
So that's the
Juice.
seed I'm going to plant for you. Juice. And next week is also going to feature the British Bulldog and Vader versus the Godwin brothers, the two that slopped Sunny.
Okay. I'm
So
here
you're
for
going to see
that.
them in action
I'm here for
next
that.
week. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Have a
See
great
you
week,
next
everybody.
week.